Hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka Blitz, and I'm back with a little bit of Yankee Doodle Dandy. This is the T71, the Tier 7 American Light, fresh off the press as we begin the short, sharp run into Christmas. Along with it, Wargaming and bought us this little bunch of goodies, the American... Well, I don't know what kind of tree it is because it's all lights, mediums, and there's one heavy at the end. So I guess it's the American, ultimately heavy tree, but a little bit of a licorice all stored on the way there. This is always a patron-sponsored post. If you'd like to consider sponsoring the channel, there's heaps of cool stuff going on, but I'm not going to go on about it. This is a real breath of fresh air. Now, I've played a lot of the Americans the last few days, trying to get a handle on the whole line. I'm going to be doing reviews on all the major tanks. Starting at the T71, I'm going to do the T21, the T69, and the T54 E4. Already done the T57, and look, there's a consensus that it's a pretty underwhelming line. And I've got to agree. Straight off the bat, it's just not that good. The DPM, comparatively speaking, between most of the American tanks in this line and their counterparts, say for instance, the M46 Patton. When you're fully rigged in that with your rations and everything, you've got a DPM of something like 3,100. Your DPM on the T54E4, fully rigged and everything, is 2,450. Your mobility on this line is generally pretty bad as well. But not on this tank. This tank's bloody lovely. It is lightning in a bottle. I call it Mighty Mouse because it just zooms around. It's so comparable to the SP1C in terms of size. It's a pocket rocket. It's got a lot going for it. What it doesn't have going for it is great pen. As you can see here, 3 175mm shots into the side of an IS-3 and 0 pens. I'm using heat here on this KV4, but look how much red there is, even with heat on the big dogs. Very tough. And it was absolutely brutal. This was the gun I was expecting to do a nice little Kolobanov in, and I just had a whole heap of bounces followed by another bounce. So you can see the gun is not exactly heroic. What it does do, though, is pack a hell of a punch. Don't use it sniping. You want to get this thing up close, personal, and right in their business, because what you're looking at is a tank that can consistently drop big burst damage and can get really close with fantastic mobility to get it done. You've got 3 shells in a clip. You've got 160 damage average in each clip. You've got a tank that'll go 64 kilometers an hour. When you've got rations, double rations, vents, I run V-stab, vents, and not a gun rammer, optics in this one. And you end up with basically 296 meters of view range, 68 degrees of traverse on your tracks, 52 degrees of traverse on your turret, 64 kilometers an hour as a top speed, and about 1665 DPM, which is not great. The DPM, as usual, is not great. Your gun handling after all that is solid enough. 0.319. It's like this right across the range. You end up getting into the 0.31s with the Type 57 heavy, and pretty much all of them. So you in the old parlance, you probably got about a 0.36 dispersion in the old parlance, but your gun handling is going to be 0.319. 3.5 seconds of aim time. But look, the joy of it really is the mobility. And the shell velocity is pretty quick too. Take a look at that. That's a very, very quick flying shell. I enjoyed this more than any other tank in the line. And it's no surprise. I love light tanks. You guys know how much I love the light tanks. And this is a light tank par excellence. It's light. It's tiny. It would fit in a shoebox. But it's got a much, much bigger bite than it has a bark. It looks very unassuming, very low to the ground. This tiny little gun, little 160 alpha dots, and suddenly you get hit with 3 of them and you have been done for 500 damage. Now, it's no surprise that being an auto loader, it has that great burst. What it doesn't have, obviously, is huge DPM. 1500 DPM or 1665 DPM is not massive. There's the SP1C, the tank I probably consider the most similar. And you can see you're only just bigger than SP1C, which is basically tinsy wincy. A little bit of a drift into a Borsig. Now this is playing with fire because a Borsig can pen you just about everywhere. Your armor is absolutely rubbish. Gun depression wise, you're looking at about 7 degrees of gun depression, which is grand. It's enough to get the job done. In my opinion, this is the best tank in the line. And I've driven heroically over the last few days. The T57 Heavy is a good enough tank. It's solid. It has its moments, but it's definitely not going to be considered overpowered at all. The Tier 9 variant, which I will review and I will get to, and I'm going to do the Tier 8 too. They're very sluggish tanks. The Tier 8 one only gets up to its top speed when you drop it off a cliff. None of them feel particularly like medium tanks. They're enormous too. Look, for the most part, they're bloody massive. The T54 is just god-awfully large. And I really want to like that tank because I do quite enjoy 3 lots of 350 Alpha, but then none of them are as good as this tank here. This tank is a wee ripper. Snake Eyes there on the left driving the LTTB. Now, I think the LTTB is still a better tank than this. I think the SP1C is on a par with it. I prefer having 3 in the clip. It allows you to just get that little bit of extra love. If you're struggling, it lets you basically permatrack a lot easier if you have to permatrack someone, and that's great. But you want to play this a little bit like a Wildcat. It really can get out and move. It's a great scout. Really quick, good view range, 300 meters of view range with on the move light tank camo. If you guys don't know what that is, basically your light tanks like the T71 can go full bore all over the place and maintain the same camouflage that a tank would normally have sitting still. But the lights manage to do that while doing 64 kilometers an hour, which is an impressive thing in and of itself. But the fact that you can do it at that kind of speed with this kind of size is what I really love, because these things hide behind anything. They hide behind rocks, they hide behind the carcasses of other tanks, they can do it all. So this is my favourite tank in the line, and it's a little bit of a letdown. I agree. A lot of people have been underwhelmed by the line, and I'm going to have a chat about it with Snake. I'm going to do a podcast specifically on the American line. Now, if you haven't been listening to the podcast, you need to get into them. They're pretty cool. Snake and I get together, and we have guests on there all the time. I'm going to be working to get some of the guys from the Twister Cup on from all over the world and have a good chat with them, and that should be a bit of a giggle. But we're going to do a podcast next week about this line, and also a bit of a Q&A, a bit of a mailbag. If you have any questions or you want to send in any questions for me, send them to Snake at askbushka@gmail.com. Anyway, back to the T71. Now, this is pretty much stock standard stuff for the T71. I'm just turning around there anticipating a little bit of a push on my right flank, but it doesn't eventuate. And I figure, well, it's not come, so I may as well make hay while the sun shines. And I start putting fire again into the baddies over here and getting all 3 in the clip there, doing about 500 damage to the M6, the big dog. And I'm right in the middle of Canyon, the new map here, and doesn't it look spectacular? Now, you're going to see the gun handling solid, but again, it is nothing special. 175 millimeters of pen means that basically if it doesn't go exactly where you aim it, it's probably very likely to bounce, which is a bit rough, but that's just how it is. Now, the T71 as a light tank is brilliant in Blitz. It can scout, it can put damage out, it can do all those kinds of things. But if I was you, I wouldn't get carried away with that. There's a real presence with light tanks because they go so fast, and you just want to get out and fly. But you can get this tank in situations like this where you can just reset the camo on it, roll forward, get another shot, do whatever you want, and then basically hide behind a crease in the ground because it is so tiny. And you just got to be wary that you don't blow it all by charging in or rushing ahead. You're usually going to be at your best when you're not seen and you're firing from stealth. And that's exactly what this tank was built for. It's tiny, it's tinsy, it's a Mighty Mouse, and it can absolutely pulverize. Now, this is not a mastery game, but I do want to have a quick whinge. I don't like whinging. I love being positive. And everyone who knows me in the Grump Telegram chat and everything will tell you I'm a massive fan of Blitz. I think it's a brilliant game, and for a mobile game especially, I think it's amazing. But I really hope they fix the mastery stuff soon, because it's really, really hard these days to get masteries. And it's just not fair on people who are having good games. And that's not about this. This is not a particularly amazing game. But there's a lot of guys out there who are having huge games, 6,000 damage games in Tier 8 and Tier 7 and Tier 8 and Tier 9 tanks, and not getting masteries because people are getting these ridiculous mastery scores in losses. So that's a T71, guys. I hope you like it. I think it's great. I love the new Canyon map. Look at this thing. It just fangs about. I'm trying to track this guy up. Just get the track. There you go. Doesn't pen. Just get him on the side. Do the business. And this is something else you should probably start doing. Even if you're not completely out in a clip, just stop and do a reload if there's a chance that you're going to be able to get to a next engagement before your clip would have reloaded anyway. So that's exactly what we do here. And we get the kill, and we don't really lose anything from reloading that clip at all. And it would have been a lot better if someone had been pushing on us to have 3 in the tank rather than 1. Now I'm going to do a heap of these reviews, guys, so don't get too fussed. You may not agree with them all. I think that the American line is going to need a buff. It's right there, and I think Wargaming have basically gone into it, and they don't want to have a tank line that is just too strong and too powerful, because autoloaders can be like that. The SP1C got nerfed a touch with its autoloader. Van Helsing, that tank wreaks havoc at the top of the tree there. I mean, 2,700 for a Tier 7 tank is pretty solid. It's not amazing. None of the American tanks seem to be pure DPM machines until you get up to the top, where you really get that 1,200 burst damage out of the T57, which seems to be the best bet of the bunch. I'm going to be doing the T21 next, then the T69, and the T54E. All tanks that can hold their own, but none of them are what you'd call real keepers. They're unique or interesting, at least with the autoloader aspect. But if I had to pick one tank to hold onto and grind in this team, it would be this one right here, right now on screen, the T71. It's a cracker. It's a wee ripper, and it's one that you should probably go out and grind to. Looks pretty special too, very hellacious in its camouflage. It is a styling gentleman. That's me. I'm done. As always, if you consider sponsoring the channel, that would be lovely. If it wasn't for Patreon and the sponsors, the channel would not exist, and there wouldn't be a video dropping every day. It's just how it is. They are awesome dudes and dudettes, and I thank them from the bottom of my little heart. If it wasn't for you guys, I would be selling houses for a living instead of doing this, which I absolutely love and adore. We're also going to be doing a live stream of the finals of the Patron tournament, which promises to be an absolute gangbusters, barrel of laughs, and I can't wait to do that. Snake and I are going to do that together. The podcast is going to be out next week, and we're going to do a live stream on the YouTube channel on Tuesday, driving basically tanks, because I like driving tanks. We'll probably drive some American tanks. Might even drive a sneaky tank. I'll see if I can get approval to drive a sneaky tank that I'm testing on live servers at the moment on my Bushka account. You won't be able to find it. It's not listed in Tankopedia just yet, boys and girls, but you never know, you're like in the big city. I'm Bushka on Blitz. Thank you very much for tuning in. Love your work. Can't wait to see you all out there in the big bad jungle that is Blitz. Look after your families, and until next time, stay safe on the battlefield.